man known as Britain's richest prisoner has been ordered to hand over £35 million to help compensate the victims of his crime. John Palmer, who's also known as Goldfinger, is serving an 8-year sentence for one of the world's biggest timeshare swindles. It's believed to be the biggest confiscation order ever made by the English courts, and now many of his victims could receive thousands of pounds in compensation. Margaret Gilmore has the story.
He's got to be one of the richest prisoners on earth. Filmed here before being jailed last year, John Palmer's personal fortune's estimated at some £270 million. Today he was back at the Old Bailey to hear how much of that would be seized after being found guilty last May of a massive timeshare fraud. Palmer and his associates cheated thousands of holidaymakers into paying deposits on dream flats in Tenerife, which often didn't exist. Today, the judge ordered he pay £2 million in compensation to the first 340 victims and a further £33 million as punishment to the Treasury. But there are thousands of others whose cases have not been heard. Edward Jenkins from Burnham-on-Sea lost £4,000.
Oh, it's a scandal. Complete scandal. If only he had put the brain that he undoubtedly has, if he'd only put that to something dare I call it above board, honest and that sort of thing, he could have been a wonderful man.
Palmer first came to notoriety in the 80s after the Brinks-Mat gold bullion robbery. He was acquitted and became a major landowner in Tenerife until he was jailed for 8 years last May for the timeshare fraud. Now campaigners plan compensation for the remaining victims.
It is our intention to start a civil class action on behalf of those 15,500 for claims against John Palmer.
Today, Palmer's lawyer said compensation would be paid.
Any genuine person that has been affected by the people that were employed by the timeshare operation between the indictment period and possibly even subsequent, if any can be found, Mr. Palmer has never, ever, ever refused to effect payment.
The words of John Palmer's solicitor there this afternoon. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Margaret Gilmore, who's at the Old Bailey. Margaret, a lot of money, or at least assets making up this big sum of £35 million. Will it all go to victims or not?
Absolutely not. The bulk of it is going to go actually to the government, to the Treasury, £33 million of confiscation money. It's the biggest confiscation order ever made by a British court, but the judge made it quite clear while John Palmer sat there without moving and just listened. The judge made it clear he believed that Palmer can afford this money, but only on top of the £33 million, there will be £2 million and only just over £2 million paid to victims. Now, we're talking here some 340 victims in the end. It's almost like a test case. It's the first victims, first group of victims, but of course leaves open the question of thousands and thousands, up to 16,000 others.
Margaret, thank you very much for that. Well, now, in the